Good day, everyone. Today we're going to talk about the role of procurement. New rules for procurement in supply chain. These days we see procurement advising our supply chains, advising CEOs, advising the user department, advising engineering on the best standards. What are the best standards now available or what is not available? What alternatives can we use? These days, we are driving supplier innovation. Yes, we are bringing new ideas to the supplier. We are helping suppliers reinvent themselves. We are also providing insights on the market, what's happening in the market, tracking fluctuations, and we're doing it through artificial intelligence. Risk protection, we are implementing risk protection strategies, yes, and we are advising our organizations accordingly. We are doing this through risk management and risk mitigation. Risk mitigation is all about contingencies and agile staffing as well, right? So agility and or being agile is very important in supply chains, and we are helping organizations promote agility. Agility relates to adaptability or speed. All right. So these are some new rules for supply chain or for procurement, actually, in supply chains. The changing role of procurement. What is happening? What is changing? The first is managing internal transactions. That's a changing role. The primary goal here is to maximize the efficiency of transaction low flow or transaction flow and reporting. Second is support for vendor engagement. Vendor engagement, supporting suppliers, supporting vendors, supporting contractors. And thirdly, the third area is value-based strategic procurement that can translate into bottom line improvements. Remember, it's all about targeting the bottom line. If we target the bottom line through savings, the company will make more money. The changing role of procurement continued. The third role that procurement has attempted to metamorphosize in several ways are procurement being increasingly responsible for buying non-traditional services, such as consultancy services. Procurement as well now challenges, or it's now challenging specifications developed by its own internal customers. We also say that we're also seeing where procurement is supporting outsourcing projects. 6 areas of conflict: market-based solutions, price versus assessment, contrived calculations, strategic decision-making or strategic discussions supported by AI, explicit versus implicit contracts, and also operating budgets versus strategic spending, all of which we'll talk about in detail in a later slide. Thank you very much. Good day, everyone. Today we're going to look at procurement management in an organization. Where is procurement management in your organization? Where is it situated? Again, procurement is a strategic function. Procurement is strategic sourcing. And procurement may involve supply relationship management. Procurement may involve a tendering process. Procurement may involve scanning the market. Here, we mentioned that procurement involves streamlining an organization's processes and achieving desired results that promote cost savings and results that will reduce time and, of course, build relationships with suppliers. Procurement is proactive, by the way. It's a proactive way of acquiring goods and services. Now, overview. The objective of best-in-class or world-class procurement organizations is to move far beyond traditional approaches. That procurement's primary role is to obtain goods and services in response to internal needs. To understand how this role is changing, we must understand what purchasing is all about and starting the primary objectives of a world-class purchasing organization. So I must say, again, that purchasing is a transactional function. Purchasing supports procurement. Procurement is a strategic function. Purchasing is responsible for transactional functions such as ordering and expediting. But procurement is responsible for strategic activities such as scanning the market, developing tenders, developing contracts, and so on. Now, consider organizational structures to optimize procurement. So, depending on your organizational structure, procurement may or may not, or procurement will function positively or negatively. Decentralized purchasing with no collaboration. Now, decentralized procurement may or may not be the right structure for you. It depends on the organization. So in some organizations, or in organizations that are very large, a decentralized model might be best for them. All right? Decentralized purchasing with limited and managed collaboration, we speak about here. And centralized control and center-led and profit center and so on. So in a nutshell, I'll summarize all of this in one or with one message. Centralized procurement has its advantages. When procurement is centralized, you can easily manage your standard operating procedure. However, centralized procurement can create some bureaucracy. Things may take a while to get done. Decentralized procurement will eradicate that so-called bureaucracy. However, when procurement is decentralized, you may lack control. So then what do we do? Over the years, or recently, we've come up with some hybrid models, not mentioned here, but there are some hybrid models. One is called CLAN, the other is called SCAN. CLAN is called Center-Led Action Network, which is a hybrid centralized model. And you have SCAN, strategically centered action network. So CLAN and SCAN, two hybrid models that basically facilitate centralized and decentralized models. Organizational structures within purchasing. So you have this example here is a decentralized structure where we have different divisions doing their own purchasing. I did highlight the benefits of that and the drawbacks. And you have here structured procurement organization, one against the world, center-led structure or center-led action network. I mentioned that. Comes across as CLAN, central control, and expansion and decentralization. Thank you very much. Good day, everyone. At this time, we're going to look at the Kraljic matrix, or the Peter Kraljic matrix, and how it applies in supply chain management. Now, in a nutshell, this matrix, has 4 quadrants. And the purpose of the quadrants and the matrix is to help the buyer or the procurement manager understand where the relationships lie and what type of relationships should exist in which quadrant. So there's one quadrant, for example, which we'll see shortly, I call it the collaborative or the strategic quadrant, where you have high impact and high risk. In that quadrant, the relationship should be collaborative. So Peter Kraljic matrix. So the importance is all about volume expenditure, which they have added to my contribution. Also, total cost of ownership, value added for the company, and sales process, right? The complexity of the supply market, it will assist in that area as well, whether it be monopoly or oligopoly. So this is what I was speaking about a while ago. This is the particular quadrant, the strategic quadrant. High supply risk, high financial risk. Now, I'll give you an example. Take, for instance, Emirates Airlines and their supplier, Boeing. So Emirates Airlines buys Boeing airplanes. Boeing is a strategic supplier. Why is Boeing a strategic supplier? You can only buy Boeing planes from Boeing. You can only go to Boeing. You cannot go elsewhere to buy Boeing related parts. So, in the event that that relationship is disrupted, there's a financial risk that Emirates will have to bear. In that, if planes do not fly, they will not make money. If planes don't fly because of a relationship that has gone bad, then business would not go on. And then there's the supply risk. Only Boeing can supply Emirates Airlines with Boeing spares. So there's a risk involved, which means that there are no other suppliers available. So that is the risk, right? And in terms of the financial side, if aircrafts are grounded, you would not make money. So that's one example. And then the other quadrants explain themselves. I'll just go quickly to the non-critical quadrant, where you have low financial risk, low supply risk. What does that mean? When you have low supply risk, it means that you have lots of leverage. So you have many suppliers supplying you in that market. And in terms of financial risk, it will be low. Why? You have options. There's lots of competition in that quadrant. So more about Kraljic. Kraljic relates to action plans, market analysis, strategic positioning, and classification of the purchasing portfolio. This is yet another model that explains the Kraljic matrix, where we see where we see company strengths and supply market strengths. Kraljic matrix is explained further here, where we see leverage products and routine products. We see the strategic quadrant on the right-hand side. And below that, we see bottlenecks. So this diagram is a bit different from the other, but the labels remain the same. For example, for routine or low value items, low risk, low financial risk, and low supply risk. For strategic items, high financial risk, high supply risk. Those labels will remain the same. Kraljic matrix. Thank you very much.